You can't see me, can you? No, you can't. I am hidden. I am still hidden. Maybe. Hello and welcome to this episode of How to Be a Great GM. Well, according to a poll that we took on Twitter, #HowToGM, what we wanted to discuss today was stealth missions. Now, stealth missions are an interesting component to your narrative arsenal, and you can add them to any setting, whether it's science fiction or fantasy or modern or anything in between. You can add in a stealth mission with the greatest of ease. However, stealth missions do require a little finessing, and they kind of go hand in hand with the prison break, the escape idea, because there's a lot of things that you need to make sure you've got right before you launch into your stealth mission, because otherwise you're going to alienate your players. So these are some of the thoughts that I've had around running a successful stealth mission with any composition of party members that you can imagine. Traditionally, we look at stealth missions and we think of, in fantasy, rogues and other kind of nefarious lowlifes. In modern day settings, we think of thieves and other kinds of lowlives. In science fiction, we think of hackers and other kinds of lowlife. But generally speaking, we associate the sneak, the stealth, the silent movement attributes, those skills, all of those kind of wonderful attributes that people use. We associate those with a stealth mission. A paladin can be equally as stealthy if they just use their noggin a little bit, and as if you, as the GM, have positioned it in such a way that you are cognizant of the fact that when you're running a stealth mission, you are not just running it for the stealthy player. Yes, the stealthy player should shine here, but at the same time, all of your other players should have equal opportunity to be just as gloriously wonderful. So how do you do that? Well, firstly, in my opinion, the best thing to do is to identify why you have a stealth mission in the first place. Narrative imperative might dictate that your party has to sneak aboard a starship or sneak past that ogre inside a cave system for whatever reason. But ultimately, it's up to you to decide exactly how that's going to play out. And there's two scenarios that I can see, and there may be many, many more, and if they are, leave them in the comments below so we can all learn. But the two scenarios that I can see it in is either to create tension, as in the case of sneaking past something without trying to alert anybody so they can get into the clear and then head off, or to create a mission. Now, the actual mission itself is to infiltrate and exfiltrate without alerting anybody to their presence. So the differences are subtle. However, a tension mission, which is simply an escape, is one that is more of an ad hoc. Usually the players find themselves in a difficult situation, and now they have to try and get out of it, and they've determined that stealthing is the best way to go about it. A mission is where the characters have got plenty of time to think about their stealth operations and are going in fully aware and hopefully fully prepared that they're about to happen. So what that means is that your tension missions, where the stealth has just sprung up on the players, that is where you need to be a little bit more lenient in terms of how you then use the rest of my suggestions. On the other hand, when they have all the time in the world to prepare, that's when you need to raise it even more and make it even more difficult, because the characters and the players have had time to prepare. So with that in mind, how do I unpack a stealth mission? Well, first and foremost, the most important thing is I try to make sure that in the course of the adventure, in the course of the journey, that there is a role for everybody. The sneaky roguelikes, the ones that can move around quietly and stealthily, they should be moving ahead of the group and looking for traps and potentially anything that could alert others to the presence of the party. So they're doing exactly what a stealth mission would entail, sneaking in shadows, moving around, trying to eliminate quietly anything that could pose a threat. However, the other two main groups, if you like, of a constituent party, the heavy hitters and the overthinkers, the heavy hitters need to have a role just as much. So what that means is that subtly, and obviously you have to not do this in a repetitive fashion, otherwise your players will start to anticipate how your stealth missions run, but your heavy hitters need to have something that they can actually do. So from time to time, have a guard which is immune to the poison darts of the thieves. Have a guard who just wanders in because, well, they just happen to be there and the thieves missed them. And the heavy hitters need to silence them quickly and efficiently. Now, what that means, of course, is that your individual who has to be silenced quickly by the heavy hitter should be silenced in 1 or maybe 2 blows tops. They shouldn't be something that requires a vast amount of beatdown because, well, that's going to break the stealth of the mission. If you think of any kind of film or novel to that matter, where people are trying to infiltrate a base of operations, usually it's a judo chop and off they go. The thing, whatever the thing is that the heavy hitters are going to overcome, the roguelikes shouldn't be able to take out. They should realize that these things hit too hard or do something that they can't overcome. Now, the heavy hitters can also be used for generally their strength or their dexterity or their health, resilience, that kind of thing, to do things that the roguelikes can't. Generally, systems balance out rogues as being nimble and agile, but not very healthy or not very strong. Heavy hitters, usually it's the opposite way around. Neither of the two, however, are usually particularly smart, and this is a broad generalization, yes, I know. But you have to leave room for the different people within your party. So the heavy hitters could also have to do things like moving things. In order to open a door, a counterweight has to be hoisted, lowered, dropped, raised, whatever, and your heavy hitter is the one who's now going to come to the fore and who's now going to do that. So that's what I mean about customizing it, making sure that there are moments where each of the members within the group can shine. Now, of course, your solitary scholastics, or whatever you want to call your thinking members of the party, or your magic users of the party, they also need to have a role. Now, they might be silencing the heavy hitters who are wearing armor, which would be silly, but there we go, it does happen. Or they might be using their magics for other things, or their big brains for solving riddles and puzzles. Well, if not, then you haven't engaged them properly. So bringing in components that those that like to have a more intelligent character can try and get their teeth into, can try and solve, can try and work out, or, and this is the other important thing, is both the heavy hitters and the shirking scholastics, no, that doesn't work, both groups can have the capacity to help drive information. This is something that a lot of people underestimate. So whilst the rogue is sneaking forward, they give all of the information to the rogue. The rogue, or the thief, or the infiltrator, is focused on things that are going to be alerted to the presence of the party. They are not focused on the architecture, the sculptures, the mosaic in the floor, unless it's trap. They're not looking around at books on the shelves. Hopefully trailing a little bit behind, the heavy hitters and the screaming psychics, the heavy hitters and the intelligent members of the party, can now follow along and can get given other information that the roguelikes weren't given. They can be given you notice that one of the statues looks like a carving of the dead king, or the mosaic in the floor speaks of an elvish invasion party. Those runes are definitely Klingon in origin. So you can use the other members of the party almost to just drop information into. And that's something that's very, very important, is that you are now giving everybody the capacity to contribute to this mission rather than just plod along. Now, if they're trying to infiltrate a cave, for example, and you go, well, there's no information that they can pick up, that's completely inaccurate. You need to think a little bit harder than that. Entering into a cave, are there bones on the floor? If there are bones, what kind of animals are they? Are they recently slaughtered? Have they been here for ages? Are there carvings on these caves? Perhaps there's some rock art on the ceiling that no one's noticed. Maybe there's a collection of mushrooms growing in the corner that could be useful as a sedative, for example. All of those options can now be given to the players who are not doing the majority of the sneaking. But again, you want to balance it out. Don't just have all of the sneaking characters doing all of the sneaking. Try, if you can, to get it so that each member within the group will have to do some kind of stealth checking here and there. And if you really want the party to succeed rather than to fail simply because of one poor roll, make sure that there is some kind of option that if the thinkers fail their silence roll and they kick a bucket or whatever, the heavy hitters can catch the bucket, or the roguelikes can catch the bucket, so that it doesn't actually make a noise. Give them that option to be able to silence everything down. That helps build the tension within the scene. It also helps create that sense of camaraderie that everyone has to look out for everyone else, and at the same time, it still drives your narrative forward. Now, the different types of stealthing that can then occur. So each of your characters has now got a role to play within this mission, and now we can look at the different types of stealth environments that could happen. Now, the first one obviously that comes into play is acrobatic. Now, this is literally where they are on beams and they're walking above the throne room of the giant troll, and he is holding court. Now, as they move across these beams, they've got to balance, they've got to step onto the right beams, they've got to watch out for those pesky little rats that are going to run around squeaking, and they've got to not stand on that nail that's been left in the wooden beam and scream out in pain. So acrobatics is one of them, and that can be really fun, especially if they are in an environment where if they freeze, the guard will walk past rather than notice them. It's a tension-building scene. It's not necessarily about amazing acrobatics. And if they fail and they fall into the middle of the room, well, obviously now that changes things. But again, here's your opportunity to ignore space a little bit, ignore 5 foot, 10 foot, all that nonsense, and as the character falls, give other characters the ability to catch them just before they fall over the edge. Creates an amazingly dynamic scene. So acrobatics, some kind of balance requirement. Actual sneaking. Sneaking is a major component to a stealth mission. It goes without saying. But just general sneaking is not that interesting. Making little sound as they move along the corridors. And please don't make them roll 500 times for every corner they take to see whether they've been stealthy or not. Only have them make rolls when someone new enters the environment or they do something stupid that would really generate a noise. So sneaking should be a major component, and they should be sneaking past things, under things, around things, over things. There should be a plethora of things for them to have to sneak around. It becomes very, very important for that to happen. Now, as I said before, it's important for all of the party members to have to go through each of these steps in order to make it as exciting as possible. So that's important. Bearing in mind, if they stand and offer a hand back to someone to help them across or to help them move quietly, give them bonuses. That's important. The video I'm going to give to the players tomorrow is all on how, as a player, their characters should prepare for stealthy missions. And if they've done that, give them advantages, give them bonuses, give them Skyrim guards. Another type of stealth mission is actually the infiltration or the impersonation stealth mission. If we look at the assault on the Death Star, for example, by Han and Chewie and Luke, they're running around the Death Star trying to be stealthy, but not exactly succeeding at it. There was only one person who really succeeded at their stealth checks, and that was Obi-Wan Kenobi, who had to go and deactivate the tractor beam. Everybody else ultimately screwed up along the way. But did Grand Moff Tarkin or Darth Vader mobilize the entire Death Star? No, they didn't. Why was that? Well, because George Lucas had worked it out beforehand. But if he was GMing that session, I suspect he may have gone, I actually want them to escape. That makes it more interesting. I need Darth Vader to have that moment with Obi-Wan Kenobi because that helps establish a whole bunch of other stuff. So yes, Han Solo happens to walk into a bunch of stormtroopers, charges into a barracks full of stormtroopers, and then runs away. What happens to those stormtroopers? Well, a couple of them wander around and fire off some shots here and there, but this is a Death Star. This is a moon-sized space station that was fully armed and operational. That should have caused a few more than just 3 or 4 guards to respond. But there was a bigger plan at play here. And that is what drove that whole scene. How tense was it, where they had to do their acrobatic leap over the chasm on that little thin piece of wire, which should have shredded his fingers to nothing, but didn't because of reasons. All of that was used to create a very tense moment within the film and to drive a major story. And if you look at it, that would have been an adventure within the grander campaign of the entire movie. And if you haven't watched that movie, well then this channel will have been very confusing to you for the past 2 years. So impersonation and misdirection are important, and you need to let the guards not scrutinize things too much. If a bunch of players have their characters dress in the uniform of the enemy and walk up to the enemy, don't have the enemy guard going, "Hang on a moment, I've never seen you around here before, we're going to arrest you." Have them say, "Oh, I've never seen you around here before. You lot must have been shipped in with the new crowd, didn't you? Well, remember, you can get some food back at that tent, and hopefully tomorrow when we're slaughtering all those little goody two-shoes, I'll see you on the battlefield. Have a good one. Yeah, right, next." So have your NPCs interact. Have that moment of tension where the player's going, "I don't know how we're going to solve this," and then move forward with a solution on their behalf if they don't come up with one necessarily. But also, again, it's about building that tension. So impersonation and misdirection allow your people to be impersonated and misdirected. And I know all of you are sitting there going, well, not all of you, some of you are sitting there going, well, I'm going to roll an intelligence check to see if they... You do that. Go for it. And then finally, part of that stealth mission is combat. Combat is critical to a stealth mission because it is the pivot on which the stealth mission can devolve into all-out warfare. And then we go back to that Star Wars and the Death Star sequence. Once Han Solo started shooting things, it then turned into a fight to a lesser degree. When the Ewoks decided to launch their attacks, the stealth mission failed and turned into a fight sequence. So you don't have to necessarily keep it stealth all the way. On the other hand, if you do want some kind of stealth combat to happen, it makes it even more dramatic, especially if the creature that they're fighting maybe can't make a noise, or it bellows loudly and its keeper goes, "Oi, keep it down in there!" And then they carry on. It creates amazing tension for the players. And if the keeper says, "I told you to shut up, if I have to tell you one more time, I'm going to come down there," the players now suddenly have an urgency to kill this creature as fast as they can. And when they slay it, the person will turn around and go, "Yeah, that's better. I was nearly getting ready to come down and slay you." So that's the important thing, is to use stealth to create tension, because that's really, in my opinion, the best use of the stealth mission. Otherwise, it's just a series of counter rolls, beat my listen check to your sneak check, all that kind of nonsense. Now, finally, the most critical part. And this is something that I know I have advocated on previous videos and on other videos, and it is still true. It's just not entirely as true for this video as it might be for other videos. And that is, don't rush the party. Let the party move at their own pace. If they want to sneak and listen at every door, let them sneak and let them move at every door. But don't make them have to roll listen checks at every door. If there is no one on the other side, they don't need to make a listen check for that. Do it once or twice where the rooms are empty, and of course they open the door to find that nothing is there. And of course make sure that when there are other people behind the door, that if those people are being loud and rambunctious, one does not need to make that perception check. For example, I don't know if you heard it on the video, but I heard my housemate coming back, and he very quietly tried to close the door, and he's now in the kitchen turning on microwaves and beeps and all sorts of things. If it's in the video, well, there's an example of a stealth check that didn't necessarily work, even though it is greatly appreciated. On the other hand, if you didn't hear it, well, then he is a ninja. So, something to think about the next time you're wanting to run a little stealth mission, stealth adventure within your grander campaign. I hope it's been helpful, useful, and if it has, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you want to join our growing legion of viewers as we propel ourselves forward towards the Christmas time, which is usually when there is lots and lots and lots of role-playing, and I certainly hope that it will be in my immediate future around that. So until next time, I wish you and yours the happiest of playing.